Welcome, everyone, to Revelation Now. My name is Jason. I'm here with my friend Tyler.
Hello, hello.
And it will just be the two of us on this voyage today.
Yeah, Jeff got raptured.
Brother Jeff went ahead of us. And he is seeing all the mysteries revealed.
He is. So when he comes back, the best podcast ever.
Yes, he will explain many things. So today we're going to continue, speaking of mysteries, and we've been looking at Revelation. We're continuing in that subject in that book. We got a couple of different things we've been looking at and talking about, and one of the things both me and Tyler have experienced is when we run into things in our life, or discoveries, or science, or theories that are not explicitly explained
Or addressed in Scripture.
or addressed in our Scripture, or maybe even seem to go against the current dogma that is in Christianity at the moment.
Yeah,
So,
and that's just ramping up right now in 2023.
yeah. And so there's a lot of things. So a couple of things we're going to look at: ancient discoveries, new discoveries, and continuing mysteries that seem to not go away.
Yeah.
And human beings are just fascinated.
Yeah. Modern civilization as well as ancient civilizations.
Yeah.
It's just the preoccupation with the stars, with the ether, with the unexplained, with the mystery.
Yeah. And so part of this for me is trying to learn where my faith personally has some flexibility and where it needs to stand firm.
Yeah.
There's a tension there where sometimes you're not holding something strong enough, and sometimes you're holding onto an idea too firmly. There's actually more room there, a little more wiggle room than maybe you realize,
Yeah.
And
It's
that
actually causing you pain.
yeah, that can be extraordinarily freeing to realize that it's not that rigid
Yeah.
on certain issues.
Yes.
And we have both experienced many friends and people we know who have left the faith. And the reason given is one of these type of issues.
Sure. Yeah, you can't fit 3 billion species of something on a boat.
Yeah.
Or or the
You
7-day creation.
can't live in a whale.
You can't live in a whale
for 3 days.
Everyone knows that.
I've never seen a talking snake.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And it's just, and you say this with all the love and grace in your heart to those people who we love dearly that have walked away, but it's just so unnecessary.
Yeah.
If you really look at Scripture and what it's saying and what it's telling us and how God has breathed His Spirit in and through it, it's not trying to tell us the answers to those kind of questions.
Yeah.
It's telling us something much bigger and much more beautiful.
It's interesting, though, because I think it does. It's just not doing it in a direct way all the time.
Right. That's what I mean. It's revelatory in a different sense.
Yeah, it's like because you hear a lot, like, it's not a science book, it's not a history book per se, but it kind of is.
To me,
it kind of does give you insights to all these things.
And we talk about it all the time. To me, it's even more brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, just relatively, like a current writer or author or whatever in 2023 with the tools we have and education and resources compared to these ancient authors, we don't hold a candle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just brilliant because we believe the creator of the universe has spoken through them in this inspired word. So that helps.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
for sure.
But even having said that, it really is just beautiful and brilliant. And but like in your opening, it doesn't explicitly speak to certain things and certain topics, and we're seeing these just come up left and right, whether it's 10-foot tall things in your backyard
Yeah.
showing up, or on what's it? Not, it's not UFO now. It's they changed
Oh,
it.
yeah, they did, right?
Can't remember what it's called now, but
It's still UFO.
yeah,
Come on.
sure.
We know it.
Yeah,
we
it's
know
still,
what you're up to.
It's still it's still UFO, but it's just almost daily, if not hourly, and
Yeah. And we just had this in our. This was for a long time a very fringe subject, UFOs and Bigfoots and all this kind of stuff. And over the years, it really is kind of interesting that it became fringe in the first place. Like, it was so ridiculous.
Yeah, it was a weird.
This idea, those crazy people.
Yeah.
Like, of course, the gigantic endless universe has no life.
Right.
Like, to me, that's just as extreme idea
Mm-hmm.
that there's just nothing out there. Anyway, we've had in our own government where it's just persistently this issue comes up, and they've had hearings not last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, and it's all over the news now, and reports, and even from the military, and there's these videos and the classic, TikTok or Tic Tac little things. Have you seen those? Any of these? Yeah. And so, but it's
Tic Tacs on TikTok.
Tic Tacs on TikTok. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
It looks like a little Tic Tac
Yes,
flying around in a way that nothing really can. And
things don't move that way.
yeah. And so there's all kinds of questions.
Sure.
And first of all, it's always just out of reach, which is interesting.
Somehow.
All of it.
Yeah.
All of the mysterious always seems to be, and I say this for the good and the bad, all of it. There's really is something challenging for me that, as much as even as a person of faith and a religious person, and I don't know why you can never totally grab it.
Yeah.
Never totally grab it.
Yeah.
Miracles, miraculous. There's almost always some other explanation
Yeah.
available. And you were just talking about that, even the scripture where was it Jesus' baptism, or the part where they're like, oh, it was just thunder.
Yeah. God spoke, and
God
it was thunder.
speaks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just thunder. It's always a lot of things are out of reach. Some things aren't. And so we're going to talk about a couple of them. The first one we were looking at last week, what I'm talking about, the UFOs. What would it mean if they did find it?
Yeah. What happens?
What happens to our faith if there is evidence, or something does show up? As much as we can, it could always be fake. There could always be some phony thing. But let's say they did. What does that mean? What does that do?
Right.
Does our worldview
We just pack it up,
fall apart? Well, I guess we were wrong, because this thing showed up. And one thing I've found comforting is two writers have been a huge influence, and they really resonate with me, and it's C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien. And they both thought about these ideas a lot. They both wrote about in fantasy and science fiction, because I think they believed it on a certain level. They really did believe it. And at that time in the world, in their life, space and discovery was a novel thing that was happening.
Right.
It was just starting to happen. And C.S. Lewis wrote a book series, a sci-fi book series, which I liked. They're not. Some people didn't like them. I really liked the last book. I forget what the order is.
Out of the Silent Planet might be the first one.
Palandia.
Perlandia. Portlandia.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the second one, which
But
I really love.
But he was trying to wrestle with these ideas. What's going to happen? And really, this all connects because when we get into Revelation, part of what we see in Revelation is things showing up for real.
Mm.
And it changes everything. When something crosses the line from some other dimension into ours, people are going to freak out, and how they respond to that. And there's part of what Revelation does is warn us that that's going to happen, and there'll be good things and not good things showing up, And so C.S. Lewis wrestled with this, and I found an article talking about it where he was trying to figure out what his response would be if they did find aliens. So he had these questions, do the creatures possess a rational soul?
Mm.
What kind of creatures are these, And are they like humans? Meaning, are they part of the fall?
Right.
Have they fell? And what's interesting in his book, they go to another planet, and actually the humans become the aliens.
Yeah.
Who show up.
We're the bad.
We're the bad guys.
We're the bad people.
Yeah. And they actually haven't fallen on this planet,
Yeah.
and it immediately starts causing total chaos for them.
A little more ambiguous, but I felt that was the case with the movie Arrival. Those aliens, the kind of like weird floaty, squiddy things.
Yeah.
They were just kind of like, I don't know, amoral, maybe, if that's even the right word. They were just like, that wasn't a thing with them. They just were this floating knowledge buckets that were trying to help us not,
Yeah, there's kind of
been
a trend with that, from the usual scary aliens to the we are the bad guys. Or they show up to try to stop us because we're so bad.
Well, we just
we have to annihilate.
We just
humans.
recently watched the Keanu Reeves version of
Man Who Fell to Earth? Or
No. Oh man, I just left my brain. Oh crud! But it has the giant sentry with the eyes, and it's
which one?
Crud.
Keanu Reeves?
Yeah, Keanu Reeves
is he the alien?
He is. He's the alien. He looks like us.
Yeah. It's not Man That Fell to Earth.
And the original one was like many, many years before it.
It's
I can't believe I forgot the name of that movie. We just watched it too.
I did like that one. Hang on. The Day the Earth Stood Still.
The Day the Earth Stood
That's
Still.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was kind of the same thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, we've assessed things and we're giving up on you.
Yeah. And what's interesting, that's not necessarily not biblical.
Yeah.
It's
you
happened
see it over and over
Yeah.
again. Yeah.
Especially I've been looking at a lot the flood. It's a total you guys we got to start this over.
Got to shut this thing down.
And sometimes I know people don't like that. It seems like too fantasy, sci-fi. To me, sometimes
or too harsh.
To me, sometimes it makes it more real.
Yeah.
Like, no, he had to restart. I get that. Not that I would harm my children, but there's times when it gets so out of control with my kids.
Shut this thing down.
We're shutting it down.
Yeah, that's it.
You're done.
Yeah.
You're done. It's over.
Mm-hmm. Well, in full circle back to Revelation, that's what we see when that curtain closes. The difference being is that's when this new age gets ushered in.
Yeah.
The new heavens, the new earth. And that's why, it really is very hope-filled and hope-centered, the next shutdown.
Well, I see it, and I know it's...
Reboot.
It's not as popular in terms of... It is hope-filled, but to me, it's following the same pattern that I see in the larger overarching narrative of the Bible, which is exactly this.
Yeah.
It gets
Rinse
to
and
a
repeat.
point and it's got to be shut down.
Well, and you see,
And especially with the prophets, who I think all of the New Testament speaks like the prophets, especially Jesus. That's why they thought he was a prophet, because he spoke like that. And the part of it is there is a way out, but we're shutting this down again. Like on a bigger, even bigger level. It keeps spanning out, you know.
Yeah, well, that's what's fascinating, and towards the end of Revelation too, is you see that there's opportunities given, to turn, to change your mind, and they just feed more and more into their depravity and the evil. And
well, it's interesting. Peter
just keeps going deeper and deeper.
Peter talks about that, and it's like an offhand comment, but he's talking about the end where he's being mocked. You know, where's the return,
Peter,
bud? You know, and that was way back then. You know,
sure.
And he references the days of Noah and how it took him a long time to build the boat. It was sitting there in front of, they had all this.
Can you imagine
time.
like making fun of Noah and his family? Like,
saying, guys, this is coming.
Yeah.
This is the way out.
There's not even a rain cloud.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Lewis, I really love that idea. And really, he, in his view, at least in those books, Out of the Silent Planet, the Earth is kind of on lockdown to the rest of the universe.
Oh.
Because each planet has its own little g god angel thing over it, and ours went rogue. That's in his fantasy,
right?
And so they're not allowed to go there anymore.
To get infected.
The other
or
species
they'll get infected with our,
and now we had
our virus.
Yeah, we had broken out into the universe, and we're causing havoc out there. And
interesting take.
Yeah, I like it. But he was wrestling that, and he didn't see it necessarily as a end all.
A deal breaker.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this a lot. This idea of a deal breaker, like where is our faith at, and what's it in?
Yeah.
And what causes it to shake?
Yeah.
Or to stand firm?
Yeah.
And you and I have both been heavily influenced by Greg Boyd.
Yeah.
And a message he gave, I want to say it was early 2000s, called House of Cards Faith.
Yeah.
And for me, it was, it blessed me so much, and I owe so much to that message, because I had been just kind of running from God and doing a prodigal son routine for about 15 years. And when I came back to Christ and came back to the church, I was so fragile. And there was a lot going on in popular culture and in movies and stuff like that. And I remember Bill Maher just had a movie called Religulous out, and I watched it, and I had all these like, oh no, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so his message was titled House of Cards Faith, and it was all about concentric circles. What's at the bullseye, what's important and what's not.
Yeah.
And of course Jesus was at that center. So that's always got to be our jumping off point. Like, even when it comes to aliens, or we just saw Jeff just sent us an article before we fired this podcast up about a 300,000-year-old skull.
Right.
What does that mean?
Yeah. What do you do with that?
What do you do with that? What's that mean?
I remember I taught on a Wednesday.
Oh, I remember
on
so
that,
good. Yep.
I used Boyd's whole
concentric
circles idea, because it literally, I think, saved my faith from both being too loose and also too what's the word I'm looking for?
Rigid?
Too rigid. There's certain types of things, if you're so rigid and suddenly it gets challenged,
it becomes fragile.
Yeah, like you said, like you can't fit all the
shatters.
animals on a boat, or snakes don't talk, and
yeah,
one day somebody just comes along with something like that, and it's like, oh no, it all starts falling apart, because that's as important as Jesus.
Right.
It's like, no, it's actually not,
Yeah, and you have to look at what is Scripture saying.
Yeah.
Like, what is it addressing? What is it pointing to? And we, as Christians, faithfully observed that it's always pointing to Jesus
Yeah.
in some way, and that's the lens we use.
Well,
and
it's
that's how
strange
we
because
process.
with that concept, it does give you it gave me a flexibility that I really needed, and it totally changed my perception of the Bible. It freed me up to see it in different ways, in more of a figurative way, and not having to just constantly think like theologically,
right?
how did this all work,
Yeah.
or symbolic symbolism and patterns and all, and just a story, just a really great story or a piece of art. Like the Bible came alive to me almost when I was able to loosen up,
Right.
stop being so rigid about all of it,
Mm-hmm.
in a
Yeah.
literal sense. But at the same time, it became even more important. Like, no, the literal part of Jesus' death and resurrection and the finished works of Christ, that's like a deal breaker.
Yeah, that's
Like
unshakable.
that gets even more rigid
Absolutely,
on there,
which
you know
is
what
our
I'm saying?
gospel.
Yeah.
And he also, just to be clear, he wasn't saying that those outer outline concentric circles aren't important
Absolutely.
in any way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. They are. They're just not the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's been other ministers try to approach it, and I even get turned off sometimes because they almost diss the Bible in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not, none of it's important. It's like, no, it's all,
Yeah.
it's the best. It's all super important. It's just, this part of Jesus is at the center.
And it
Yeah.
really does speak to a lot of mysteries,
Yeah.
like all throughout.
Yeah, it
it's
really does.
incredible.
But it doesn't.
It just doesn't talk specifically about, whatever,
Yeah.
8-ton dinosaur or or whatever, like
Yeah.
a 300,000-year-old skull or
Yeah.
the flashing light UFO. And of course, we don't know what these things are.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a popular Christian take with any of this stuff is that it's, the biblical supernatural side of things.
Yeah.
Angelic, demonic.
Yep. That's your only option.
Yeah. And that might be true.
It could be.
Could totally be true.
And it's frustrating because here's the deal. Because for a long time, I was really into just like mysterious phenomenon, that kind of thing, whether it's UFOs or ghosts or all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And one thing that was frustrating, even with like aliens or Bigfoot, is that oftentimes, if you stick with it long enough, it will somehow take a turn into the supernatural.
Right.
We're like, come on, we're right back
Right, full circle. Here we go.
Like, well, they're actually not aliens. They're interdimensional, and they're lying, and there's this whole trickster thing going on.
Right.
And you're like, come on. Or there's a cultish thing connected a lot of times, which
Mhm.
I wish I like, because for me it's fun. I like it. I think it's fascinating. I think the earth is fascinating, and what in the world has happened here?
Sure.
What is this stuff? It's
Yeah.
it's exciting to me. And sometimes the strict view of the Bible and the planet it can totally kill the wonder and mystery. And I think Tolkien and Lewis ran into that, which is they literally wanted to write their books because they said there were no good Christian fantasy or sci-fi. Because we have trouble going there into the wondrous, mysterious place because we're trying to be so dogmatic about
which we should, because
everything.
before we started, I read you Psalm 33:6. By the word of Yahweh the heavens were made, and by the breath of his mouth all their host. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's like miraculous language. That's otherworldly language. Like, he spoke this into existence.
Yeah.
Like, that's, in a sense, that's wilder than any UFO or 300,000-year-old skull or anything of the sort.
Yeah.
And the Bible speaks to that.
Mm-hmm. It seems to give us some glimpses. I don't, for me personally, for something like what you call like pre-Adamite, again, it's not the center of my faith or anything like
Yeah.
that. But so what? It's still amazing. I
Yeah.
think it's fascinating.
And for
it-
those that maybe don't know what that means, that just means like literally something that existed here before Adam.
Yeah.
That just was around, and
Yeah.
we can't really explain what that was. Was
And-
it attached to Satan and his fall?
Yeah.
And
a whole other thing.
a whole other thing
Thing.
where it's like, whatever, Adam and Eve are 2.0
Yeah.
or
And they keep with the
2.3.
universe and with the earth, it keeps getting older. Like he's
today's thing. It used to
300,000 year old
8,000 years old.
know?
12,000 years old.
Yeah.
100,000 years old. 300,000 years old.
Yeah. And so for me personally, I am totally open to a whole other thing,
Mm.
And the Bible gives us just glimpses. It doesn't to me, it doesn't strictly say no way. And it doesn't paint it out. Like, I think purposely. I think it's purposely not telling us everything sometimes.
Right.
Whatever that other story is, I don't know. But it's fascinating.
Yeah, and the original Hebrew authors, that wasn't their intention to tell us those things.
Yeah. But again, it does give glimpses.
Yeah.
There are hints of like, what? I mean, if you want to talk about Nephilim
Yeah.
or something like what the heck?
Yeah, every once in a while
What
it's like
is this?
wink, wink, wink.
Or any of it, any of the miraculous period.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mount Sinai to me is like total alien visitation.
Oh my gosh.
Like one of the
Yeah.
best descriptions of all
Don't
time.
let even an animal step foot at the bottom, just to begin to climb this
Yeah.
mountain.
And I've been reading it, and it's one of my daughter's favorite stories because it's just awesome. It's mysterious and
The
wonderful.
theophany
and,
at Sinai.
and yeah, like Moses is glowing when he comes down.
Yeah.
Like what is that? Like that's so cool. Like that's the part for me where there's different ways of looking at the Bible. There's a part of reading it where it's just like just as a piece of art. As a story, it's just really gets exciting and like beautiful, and like there's other moral layers and all kinds of stuff there, but even just as like I don't know how to say it.
Getting to revisit it with your child too.
Yeah,
Through her eyes.
for me it was good because it took me a long time to get there. Personally, I was stuck in a really dogmatic like trying to.
Well, and as we get older, we just get more bitter and jaded, and it's hard to unlearn things that you've learned. And I'm sure that's a big reason why Jesus alluded to it being easier for a kid to get into the kingdom, We should be more childlike in that sense, that all that wonder, that just trust, seeing things in that way through that lens.
Yeah.
I saw an episode of The Chosen the other night. It was the same way. It was cool. Have you seen that show?
A little bit.
There's one of the early episodes. Jesus is hanging out with a group of kids.
Mm-hmm.
So sweet.
Yeah.
It was so sweet. And there was one point where he's did the Lord's Prayer. It's almost like he's trying it out on them.
Nice.
It was just something about it. It was just so beautiful. But just seeing their just openness.
Yeah. And part
that
of it,
wonder.
even like what I've noticed with like something like The Chosen is, how do I say this? Sometimes I purposely don't like watching it because my imagination has already run wild with some of this
What
stuff.
they're putting skin on.
And they're fleshing it out in a certain way. And I'm like, oh, I saw that a little different,
Sure.
I appreciate it. I appreciate
Yeah.
what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. But anytime, these are like sacred texts.
Yeah.
I mean, good luck with that,
Yeah. That's a tough hill to climb. But I was really, I was impressed. And that episode especially, I had tears in my eyes the whole time because there was something, just the human side of Jesus really shined through. And I was like, it moved me like I wasn't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's scenes of him just at nighttime in his tent, just with tears in his eyes, just praying.
Yeah.
Just like, way Gethsemane.
I haven't liked all of it because there's parts where I would be like, this is so cheesy and boring. What is this? And then I would be like crying. It would be like
even in the midst of it. Yeah.
Well, there'll be a sneaky scene where it's just like you said, the humanness or
Yeah.
this like soul part comes through, and it's not consistently that way, but every once in a while it hits. It does.
Well, what hit me was just like I said, the humanity of Jesus. And I mean, speaking of all of these mysteries, I mean, my goodness gracious, the creator of the universe walking planet Earth in flesh.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't get any more out there.
Yeah.
Like, that is incredible. And it just really just crushed me in the best way. Like, wow, this is so beautiful and incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Jesus, right there, bullseye. That's the center of our circles.
And really, I mean, he said it was all about him, all the scriptures, and it's been amazing too to see that as well, be able to come alive for me. But part of it, I can't explain it. There was something that happened to me with the concentric circles ideas that freed me.
Yeah.
To just explore the Bible in a creative way.
Yeah.
And I know that can be dangerous for people, maybe theologically or something, come up with all this wacky stuff.
Right.
But compared to like zero, being able to read the Bible zero, like put me to sleep, I have no interest to like obsess with it. Like that was an entry point for me that just, it was a game changer really, And I think for stuff like this, we're talking about like aliens and all that. Like that's, like I said, that's stuff that I find interesting and exciting, and it's all through that, especially in the prophets or the apocalyptic.
And that was 15 years. So 15 years I was outside of church and just outside of the ideal will of God in my life, and it's been 15 years exactly since I heard that message. And it really has changed my life, because 15 years ago, all the stuff we're talking about, aliens in people's backyards and this flying in the air and this and that, I probably would have had the same response. Like, oh man, that's devastating to my faith. Oh well, I thought I knew what I believed.
Yeah, but it like we said, it doesn't totally flesh it out, but there's so much there that even the non-people of faith point to our scriptures. Yeah. Whether it's Isaiah or Revelation or, the things they're describing are otherworldly. Ezekiel. Yeah. I mean, I've been reading through Zechariah. It's wild. Some of this, it's all through our Bible is this miraculous, mysterious stuff.
Yeah, you can understand why modern day naysayers, will almost, not always, but they'll often argue they were on drugs or something.
Yeah,
because it's just wild.
Yeah, and
these visions they're seeing and how they're describing them, and
and I love that
what they're seeing.
There's different ways to even look at that. Like you said, some people think they were on drugs, or were they trying to describe something they saw?
Yeah.
In their own language, like horses. Was it really a horse, or is this just
the best they
poetic
can do?
Language? Is it, some kind of, I don't know. Are they just making up a story? A good story with
Well, and we've talked about that in this podcast before, which one of the many so amazing things about the book of Revelation is John's constantly riffing off these things in the Old Testament.
Right.
These Old Testament prophecies, when he's describing what he saw and the visions he had and what he was shown and told that, he wrote down for us in the book of Revelation. He's describing, I think, at times the best visibility with that stuff in mind to make the visual connection of like, oh yeah, remember that? Well, that's this. And that this is now pointing to this. Yeah. And it's just this beautiful interconnectedness and if you know the scriptures, which they did, which is so cool, and we need to get back to that. 2023. I think they knew they knew their scriptures.
Yeah.
They could just, they would, when they heard Revelation read aloud to them, I mean, just, I think instantly they would just be like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh
Absolutely.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
For us,
And
it's just like,
this is so strange. I've never heard such a thing.
I think it was the
Yeah.
reverse with them. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, okay.
He was clearly
tracking with that.
Yeah, he's clearly speaking this other.
Yeah, and we're like, I'm
language.
like a stack of commentaries, and like, what? No, what's happening?
Yeah.
They just understood because they understood the scriptures.
Yeah, and so when we're looking at some of these things, I feel like, I don't know, there's part of me that I feel free to look at the world with wonder.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, who did make these pyramids?
What is that?
I don't have to like dogmatically tell you
And
exactly.
you know what I've been doing too?
–
I've also been going to my Father in prayer, like, talk to him about it.
Mm-hmm.
Father, what is this?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
What's happening?
And it really does feel like that, though, because even the scientific view, it's like the more they know, the less they know.
Oh, gosh. Darren, our buddy Darren, he recommended a book called The Language of Creation by Jonathan? Or is it Matthew? Matthew Paggio.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
But he makes this very grandiose statement right off the bat that he believes modern science is just slowly just coming full circle back to this biblical cosmology and this biblical idea of the universe.
Yeah.
Because all this unexplained it just seems to be pointing back more and more to this original outside of us.
Yeah.
Uncaused cause, miraculous, wonderful, unimaginable,
Right.
incomprehensible thing.
Yeah. I even think about what's his name? Graham. Have you seen Graham Hancock's work at all?
I don't think so.
The Ancient Apocalypse guy. But he has a series that was really popular on Netflix, but part of it that I like is that he got really frustrated with the way archaeologists were treating the ancient religions. It's just all silly myths.
Yeah.
It was all nonsense. And he started saying, wait a second, maybe these stories were their best way of describing something that happened. Mm-hmm. And so there was this is just, for instance, this motif of a snake or a dragon in the sky coming down at a certain time. And he started putting it together that maybe they were talking actually about a comet. And it's the way a comet would look in the sky with a tail, the way it's coming down, and it caused this whole crazy thing. They just put a
fire-breathing dragon.
Yeah, mystery around it.
Breaking into the atmosphere.
Yeah, and sometimes I think that can be helpful. I don't think it's like an end-all way of looking at the Bible, but I think you can.
And here's
like the flood story or something. There's all these flood stories, around the planet.
And I'll push a little further than that. I would argue too that these ancient civilizations maybe were just tuned in a little more than we are.
Yeah, exactly.
To little g gods and other beings and other things going on. That was just part and parcel of their day and understanding of how life worked.
Yeah.
And now we're so smart. We've moved beyond that that sort of thinking. And the older I get, the more I'm in the Word of God, the more I see that just seems to be an accurate thing.
Yeah.
That there is this other.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's part of it where I think it was Jordan Peterson or something. He was saying how you're kind of stuck between two miraculous options. Either there's something there, which is an amazing, wild leap of faith, or you have a other bigger leap of faith that there's nothing. That's a big universe
Yeah.
out there for nothing to be there. Either way, it's going to take some faith,
Right.
And so where does that leave us? As we head out today, and we will continue to get news of new discoveries.
Yeah, and we look to the night sky
and new
something flashes by.
new theories that we find in the ground, and
the ground and the skies,
Ground and
everywhere in between.
hey, what in the world is going on? I do believe we have a guide through all this craziness, and it's told in such a beautiful way. It's told in a way that gives you room to live in mystery, while also being tethered to truth,
Right.
to the truth at the same time. So, as we head out today, friends, get into the Word, man.
Yeah.
Let your be able to look at it with wonder and mystery, and let it come alive to you.
Yeah. It's alive, powerful, sharper than any two-edged sword.
All right. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you next week.